And I think it's really important first for people to understand what are toxic bosses. So the hundreds of behaviors I was able to categorize into the 8 personas of a toxic boss to give people a language of what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And when you realize what you're dealing with, you realize I'm not alone and this is bad. Then I help them realize, what are the physical impacts on you? What are the emotional impacts on you? How is it affecting your health and your mental well-being? And then it comes down to, most people think there are only 2 choices, to stay or to quit, but there's actually 6 choices in total. The stay and the quit are only 2 of 6 choices.
Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to Culture Talks, where we talk to next-gen leaders that are making the workplace better, getting greater results, and helping leaders and people thrive at all levels. And I'm delighted to catch up again with my dear friend and colleague and person who I admire so much, Dr. Laura Hambley Lovett, who is a world-renowned psychologist and culture leader and author and all kinds of things that just make her stand out. Very proud to be associated with her, and Happy New Year, Laura. And where are you located this morning?
Calgary, Alberta, looking out at the beautiful frost on all these trees.
Well, there you go. You look like you're nice and cozy there in your January winter in your office, and we're just delighted to have you join us and give continued guidance to our audience that are leaders that are continually learning and developing and working on the same mission and movement that we have, Laura, and that's thriving workplaces. And congratulations on your new upcoming book, I Wish I'd Quit Sooner. And I'm going to read something that's very impressive, and it comes from someone who you and I both know, Marshall Goldsmith, who continues to be one of the leading thinkers and most highly respected leadership gurus in the world. And he writes, Dr. Laura Hambley Lovett brings validation and real-world guidance to anyone who's ever felt trapped under a toxic boss. Her blend of research, lived experience, and practical tools makes you feel supported and equipped to take your next step with confidence. This is the kind of book that just doesn't help you survive a toxic workplace. It helps you reclaim your power and move forward with your life. Wow, that is quite the endorsement. And I Wish I'd Quit Sooner. Coming out, I've pre-ordered it. It's going to be released on January 13th on all the platforms, and you must be very excited. Give us a little insight into what was the genesis of the book and how you're feeling about it right now.
Sure. Well, thank you. This is a great way to start the new year. The Monday after the holidays is always an interesting time. It's a time of resetting, and I feel like I'm just launching into this week with the book coming out next week. And it's just been an incredible adventure, and holding it in my hand now. So this is what it looks like.
Woohoo!
Yeah, thank you. So on the front is a cage with a bird escaping the cage, but in reality, the cage was never actually locked. And a lot of people feel trapped under a toxic boss. And I've been working with clients from all over the place on this issue, on regaining their confidence and their clarity and getting back into the driver's seat of their career. And I know what to do to help people, but this book will help thousands and tens of thousands of people. I'm sure of it.
Yeah. So let's explore that further, because how did you come to the title? Because when we first started talking about this, you were, the languages around toxic bosses, and I love the way that the book has evolved and the way you've, this is obviously the language of people that you've interviewed and talked to, but what's the underlying essence behind that? I know it's obvious at one level, but what's the deeper tone behind I'd Wish I'd Quit Sooner?
Well, so we did a lot of interviews. It was a couple of years ago when I first started the research. So I have a team of university students, and we are continuing the research in 2026, absolutely, across North America. So we began with interviewing toxic boss survivors, and hundreds of behaviors came out, and all of these behaviors about how they do what they do and the damage that they do and how that affects people. And the participants gave stories. They talked about their real stories, and they said, several times that they wish they'd quit sooner. When I said, what advice would you have for people going through this now? I wish I'd quit sooner because I thought things would get better. I thought if I just worked harder, if I had more determination, if I just sucked it up, then things would get better, and they didn't get better. And that's what differentiates a toxic from a difficult boss. A toxic boss will always get worse, eroding your engagement, your productivity, and then your health.
Laura, it's kind of scary, right? When you're in an environment and everybody's situation is uniquely their own, right? And most people need a paycheck, and you're there and you're looking at your options and you're seeing the world that we're living in now. Because I know you have a whole business in the career counseling and world as well. But you know, I know I have a toxic boss. I don't see that changing. I see me stuck there for now, quote, stuck. And in my head, you know, I've got a mortgage to pay and people that depend on me. How do I navigate that? And what gives people the courage to step out of that environment? What advice do you give people in that situation?
So it's not, there's different pieces of advice for sure. And I think it's really important first for people to understand what are toxic bosses. So the hundreds of behaviors I was able to categorize into the 8 personas of a toxic boss to give people a language of what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And when you realize what you're dealing with, you realize I'm not alone and this is bad. This is not good. And then I help them realize, what are the physical impacts on you? What are the emotional impacts on you? How is it affecting your health and your mental well-being? So once we go through all of that process in the book, then it's okay, this is bad and it's hurting me. And then it comes down to, most people think there are only 2 choices, to stay or to quit, but there's actually 6 choices in total. The stay and the quit are only 2 of 6 choices. So then I educate people on what are the different options that lay ahead of you, including creating a winning exit plan, which is, okay, I am going to get out of here. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort, but I am going to get out of here. And for some people, that's a total reality once they can get out of their head and realize that the cage isn't actually locked. And that's why on my cover, the bird's escaping the cage, it was a cage that wasn't actually locked.
Right.
But some people are trapped financially and it's harder, but there are ways to change your mindset and navigate it. But all in all, toxic bosses get worse over time. And if there's any way to get out or to move within your organization or to file a report your toxic boss, which is a whole other ball of wax. Right. And I'm talking to organizations about that and really raising a light on the issue. People need to feel safe to report a toxic boss without fearing it'll damage their career.
You know, I love the idea that you're stratifying this so that I don't use just a big sloppy paintbrush to paint everything the same way. I love the fact that the options aren't just stay or quit, that there are 6, defined strategies. I mean, there's a reason to read the book. I mean, that by itself, or that I can actually describe the behavior of the 8 different behaviors and really know what I'm dealing with, as opposed to just use a broad brush kind of statement that doesn't help me very much. So that is just exceptional. Do you think that these bosses really understand and know that they are toxic? Do you, and I know that's a complicated question that, you might have to really scrape off your clinical psychology background to really answer that one. Do they know?
That's an easy question. No, they absolutely don't know. So if someone says, Dr. Laura, am I a toxic boss? I say absolutely not, because if you were, you would never ask that question.
Yeah.
Difficult bosses will ask that question. Right. And I'd say I like to think of a bell curve. I'm going to draw this out because I've been thinking about it lately in terms of, on either side of the bell curve, we have great bosses. Okay, the great, awesome bosses like you, Lorne, and like some of the people you interview, and the people that do it from a heart place, not an ego place. And I don't know what I would estimate that being. What would you say, Lorne? 5%?
Yeah, 5% probably.
Okay. And then on the other extreme is the toxic boss, which are truly damaging, and they don't get better and they cause major damage. I don't have data on exactly what this is because it's hard to actually measure, but I'm going to say that it could be 5 to 10%. Some
Yeah.
people would argue more.
Yeah.
And then we have a percentage that's the difficult boss. You can work with them. You can manage them. They can become better bosses. They do have the ability to develop, but they're a pain in the butt. I mean, they're frustrating. They're usually poor communicators, but
Right.
they have a heart under there that is open to learning. And they may have egos. I mean, we all have egos, but their ego's not so out of control like a toxic boss is. So then we have a group of these difficult bosses, and then we have the average, the average. Then we have the good ones that are, good, and then, so I really am focused on the toxic ones because they do the most damage. But I'm all about developing difficult bosses into better ones and great leaders from the average ones.
Yeah, I know. I know you are, you're going to be the topic of my strategic HR class that's coming up. As a matter of fact, in my culture MBA program, I'm going to make sure that we read your book.
Oh, wow.
Coming up in August, so stay tuned for that. And in my Harvard class, I'm definitely going to point it out to the hundreds of people that I get there as well, 'cause I think it's so important. Please take that in the most complimentary way that I can sincerely offer it to you, because if I'm running a company, I cannot afford to have a toxic boss. Mm-mm. I can have difficult bosses. Mm-hmm. I'm going to have them. I'm probably one of them from time to time. We're not perfect. I have this phrase about great, not perfect leadership. We're on a continuum. A boss that's causing damage, I cannot afford to have. So if I came to you as a CEO or as a C-suite leader, CPO, said, Dr. Hambley, I need your help identifying and getting these toxic bosses out of here. What's a conversation we might have to start that and move along that way?
It's about collecting the information on what's going on. And the only way to do that is to ask people in a way where they feel safe.
Yeah.
It can't be HR asking people, because HR is embedded in the group, right? And HR often finds themselves trapped between a toxic boss and a human being who's suffering, which is a really difficult spot when the toxic boss is in a position of power over the HR.
Right.
So when they're in higher level positions, executive roles. And I always say a toxic boss can be any level in an organization, all the way up to the CEO and even the chair of the board. So if we have a situation where internally asking the questions is tricky because people don't feel safe, then you need to have objective external data. You need to have climate indicators and surveys and upward feedback that can allow the targeting of where is the hotspot, what is going on here, and then digging into that with courage. It takes courage. It takes care, curiosity, and courage. And courage is about asking the difficult questions and then being willing to deal with the answers. And deal with the answers swiftly, not sit on it like, oh my gosh, Jake is a toxic boss. I mean, his people are quitting, turnover's high, engagement's low, people are upset. There's 2 stress leaves on a team of 10. But he brings in so much revenue.
Right.
He brings in so much revenue.
Got our key clients.
Yeah. So it's that type of, it's a tough decision.
Yeah, it's really not in some ways for me, because I agree with you. I'm wondering, is there an index around there? Like, for example, you just raised a number. Like, one, I can get objective data, or I can get data ideally in a safe environment from people that are open to come up. But there are other indicators, like 2 people on stress leave, the high turnover, the no one wants to work for that person. Is there a bundle of sort of indexes where you go, you know what? You're checking off too many of these boxes, and we're not going to develop you, because we're not going to try and develop you because we think there's something fundamentally that's just off around you in this particular role. You're not for us. You've got to go. And I'm wondering if we just need to be much more rigorous around putting that objective data that's out there along with qualitative data that comes from a safe group of people. And you go, we can confidently say this person is not difficult. This person is toxic. Out. You got to go.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's an easy decision, but I think it can be a difficult decision at times where organizations get stuck in, but they have our key clients. They're making money.
Exactly.
And the toxic boss is usually quite intelligent, quite charismatic, and really good at managing up. So oftentimes the toxic boss's boss might be unaware of it and say,
right.
What? that doesn't make sense. And then I say, well, you're not doing your job, because your job at that higher level is to make sure the whole village is doing well,
Right.
right? Not just the layer below you in the castle. It has to be all the villagers are healthy and doing well. And if you don't know the answer to that, you shouldn't be taking that salary.
Yeah. There's a couple of things that some organizations do that are kind of evolving. One of them is that on a regular basis, regular, I'm talking about minimum once a week, a question goes out to a work team and the response gets very transparently shared with that boss and the boss's boss. So, let's say, for example, that we used, with your support, the right kind of question, because I know as a trained psychologist, you know that the way the question is described and framed is really important. But let's say you could have the right questions and would go out there, and that data came back very transparently. Over a period of time, you'd have a pretty quick idea, wouldn't you? I'm wondering if we need to have a little more of that, to have the idea that these once a year engagement surveys, or waiting for somebody to have the courage to go to HR, and then HR is stuck in the middle in this kind of odd kind of investigative role that they're usually not as good at because, they're for all kinds of reasons. I'm wondering if we need more of that.
Yeah, you need to have regular data, regular input, and it can be in different forms. It can be asking the questions. It can be pulse surveys or single questions.
Right.
It's all what the organization can manage and actually act on, because I think it's not good to ask any question if you're not going to take the feedback seriously and act on it. And that's what I see too much of, asking the question and then sitting on the results.
Yeah, sitting on the results.
I don't like that. But my research team and I, we're actually creating an organizational measure, a survey of toxic leadership hotspots, to understand where are the behaviors and what are the behaviors that are happening and where, so you can get an assessment of what's going on with toxicity in your organization.
Yeah, and I know this needs more elaboration, and I would encourage people to hire you if they are, at a minimum, read your book and hire you if they wanted to do this. But if I was the chief people officer or the CEO, and I asked you to come and meet with me and invited you, and I said, hey, just behind closed doors, I want to start to work on some of these questions that I'm regularly going to ask. I'm going to ask every single person in this organization on a continual rotating basis once a week, because I want to find out. I'm not just witch hunting toxic bosses. I'm going to do that and get rid of them. I also want to use this as a developmental tool. Mm-hmm. Let's say that we were whiteboarding 5 or so questions. What would they be? And I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but I'm kind of just trying to explore, like as if we were, I want this to go to every single employee about their boss. Yeah, about their boss. And the data is going to be shared with them, their boss, and their boss's boss.
Right. Do you trust your boss? Does your boss trust
you? Do you trust your boss?
Right. Do you feel your boss trusts you? Because that's
you feel your boss trusts you.
Does your boss support your growth and development?
Yeah.
Do you feel safe to bring up issues, concerns, and mistakes to your boss? And does your boss treat you like a human being? So do you feel like your boss genuinely cares about you as a human being versus a human resource?
You know what? So if I were the CEO right now, I'd go, okay, Hambley, you know what? You and I are on. I'm hiring you. We're going to put that instrument in place, and we're going to put a process and a way to get that out, answers to those questions, and we're going to use them as the basis for our leadership development. We're going to use a basis to understand who's really doing well, and we're going to understand as a leader. And I'm also going to use it as a way to kind of move out people that continually score low on all those things, and I just can't afford to invest in. I got to move them out.
It doesn't necessarily mean moving them out, Lorne. It could mean moving them into non-people leadership roles.
Right.
And I think we forget that too much. It's either that you're a leader or you're out. But what about if they have the skills, they have the clients, and we could keep them in, but they're not having to interface and manage the human beings?
I 100% agree. I was talking to, and I won't, for obvious reasons, I won't get into it, the client, but there was a client who was the leader of a very large school system in North America, very large. And the person he had in charge of his maintenance system was clearly toxic. He had massive data about it, but he was the best procurement supplier management guy in the district. I mean, people revered his ability to manage these complex school building projects and suppliers. That was his strength. And it would just seem obvious you could put that person in that role of using that capability and bringing that technical competence, but not have that person in charge of running a bunch of people where they're obviously, they're out of step with their strength. And so your point is really well taken. I mean, there's some merit in that expertise, just being able to not necessarily say just because you've got this expertise allows you to be promoted to be in charge of influencing other human beings on a day-to-day basis. That we need to break that thinking a little bit in a more comprehensive, meaningful way.
And sometimes the person is neurodivergent, and that's come up over the last year for me because I say, well, we shouldn't promote brilliant jerks. And then the neurodivergent community saying, well, I have autism and I might come across as a jerk, but I don't mean to. But why should my career be stifled because of that? And it's a really important topic to realize that we all have gifts and we all have things that we're good at, and we need to be doing the things that utilize our gifts and our strengths and not punish us for being neurodivergent, which is why we need technical paths. We need a deeper understanding of neurodivergence at work and what it looks like and what it means, and supporting the growth of everybody.
This is going to sound horribly clumsy on my part because I want to be highly respectful to the neurodivergent concept. I do. But when does being a jerk just mean being a jerk? And, and is it too easy to fall into a thing? Well, I'm just neurodivergent. I mean, I don't want to sound clumsy and insensitive because I think there are kind of elements and characteristics, obviously, that we need to be more knowledgeable about around respecting and appreciating that. But jerk behavior is jerk behavior.
Yeah, and that's the thing where we have to put in place clear expectations, and we have to put in place our values and how we expect our values and our workplace climate to be. And then people who have trouble communicating, for example, I mean, people leadership roles are really nuanced in how you communicate. I just think we have to be careful, again, of putting people where their strengths are. And if giving feedback and understanding the gray and the nuance of human behavior and human motivation is not easy for you, then why would you want to be doing it? Why not use your technical brilliance?
Right. Completely agree. Hey, we're going into 2020. We got 4 more years left in this decade. And you and I have talked a little about this formally and informally, but I just want to revisit it. Here we are in a world where AI, tremendous pressure on board and CEOs across the world to drive the, quote, efficiency and the results of these massive AI investments that they're making or the Big 10 tech companies are making. So that's one thing. You've got Peter Thiel, Elon Musk's of the world that are saying very publicly and openly, we can't afford to have compassion. We need to have just meritocracy. You've got large companies that are insisting that their companies go back into the office, insisting that people do that regardless of the situation. So you've got these different mixed things going on. At the same time, we are trying to grow and develop and become more aware. Are you an optimist through all this?
I'm an optimist because I think that there are more people who have good hearts and are souls that want to make a difference in the world and come from a place of love versus fear. It's all about love versus fear. And I think fear is fear of not enough, fear of competition, fear of, not making enough money and having enough things, and fear of death. I mean, that's a big one too. But I think if we come from a place of love, and I think compassion and love are the ultimate human qualities. Everything else can be replaced by AI other than human compassion, love, empathy, gratitude. And I think there's a lot of people who are awakening to more of this and coming into a place of more, I call it soul alignment, but a place of leading from a place of heart and living from a place of heart. And ultimately, all humans are connected. We're all connected to one another on this planet. And me against you thinking and some of those statements about compassion is not something that we need. I think it's absolutely wrong.
Yeah. And it's why you and I do this every day. I mean, this deep purpose around advancing based on this need that we have for love, for care, for being part of, to belong, to make a difference, I think separates us from. And do you have any additional insight or emerging thinking around how we make room for love and results and, badass uh, profit making and all the things, how they kind of live together in the same world?
Yeah, I think it's how we define success, first of all. I think really getting deep with what is success. So when you're on your deathbed and you look back on your life or at your celebration of life, what is said about you and who is there and what are they saying? And I got to tell you, I had my 50th birthday and it was like a celebration of life in a way. The people were saying things that made me feel I'm on the right track. That if it was my last series of speeches about Laura, I'm proud of what I'm doing. I'm living from a place where I'm making a difference. I'm impacting. I'm mentoring a lot of people. I'm putting good into the world. Am I rich from it? No. Do I have a lot of abundance and things to be grateful for? Yes. And I do think abundance flows when you're doing things with purpose and you're doing things from a place of care and you're putting your intention and your energy into things that'll help this planet. So I think you can end up wealthy. I mean, material wealth is a source of wealth and there's nothing wrong with it. But you can end up wealthy, but if that is the only goal, material wealth, then you're in trouble because true abundance and success is a lot more than that. It's a
Yeah,
lot
I'm
more than that.
so, well, it's been quite a few years ago since I wrote the character triangle, and I wrote
Mm-hmm.
three values. One was respect and everything that meant self accountability. And then
Mm-hmm.
the third value was around abundance. And I had a lot of people look at me and go, what the hell is abundance? It sounds pretty flaky, but really abundance is about the generosity of giving. And since then, people like Adam Grant has done tremendous research on it around the most successful people in the world are givers.
Mm-hmm.
They're not
Mm-hmm.
takers.
Mm-hmm.
They're not even matchers. They're generous givers. And I don't mean that, they get sucked in and are naive, but they're just generous in every way about they wake up thinking about the act of giving as being foundational to their success. And I think you're right though. I mean, and ultimately can lead to material well-being as well, which is great. I mean, we're all for that. It doesn't have to be at the expense, though. Take me through that maybe as we start to move towards closing out this conversation around, if I'm a C-suite leader, I've got to get results, right? I've got investors that are institutional investors, and I'm a public company. I'm expected to get numbers that are continually better. I've got there's lots riding on my ability to navigate the long-term sustainability of the company. And I've got to make these hard decisions about human beings,
Mm-hmm.
about, I've got a CFO that's knocking on my door and telling me I've got too much headcount in a particular area, or how do I navigate through all that tough decision making and still embrace love and care and respect and how might I do that in a way where, frankly, the board's not going to kick me out either?
Mm-hmm. It's doing so from a caring place. So the way that you can do layoffs can be really harsh. And I see it a lot at Canada Career Counseling, my company, when people are harshly let go and it's just done from a really cold, calculated
Right.
place. Or you can do it in a kinder way. You can support them in helping them to find something else by a really generous outplacement package. You can do so in a way that is transparent. You're transparently about your decisions so that people aren't left wondering, am I next? And you can do it from a way that is kind, caring, and compassionate, even though it is also going to be tough on the person because they're put out back into the world. But oftentimes people who are a year later say they're glad they're glad it happened. Their
Yeah.
rejection is redirection, and they've landed somewhere better. So it's a balancing act. But I think culture's like a garden, and so toxic bosses are weeds, right, or toxicity in the soil. But there's a lot of ways to grow the garden. I mean, you need to get rid of the toxicity, but when you're growing the garden, yeah, maybe we need to cut the bushes over there because we have too many things to water, or maybe there's another creative way to make more money by where we don't have to get rid of 200 people. Maybe
Right.
we can reposition into another segment or market or something, and use the creative genius in the team to grow the garden in a different direction. So too often it's easy to do the massive cuts, and it's kind of the old school way of thinking versus innovation and forward thinking. And of course there are people that need to go. I mean, you need to get rid of people that are not producing and fitting your culture. Yes.
Right.
But I think too often the widespread layoffs are a blanket approach.
Yes. And that is a wonderful response and such good guidance. And in the end, we've kind of ended up at the same place around the cage wasn't locked to begin with, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the beauty in that metaphor, Laura. I mean, really, I'm so proud of the work that you're doing. And so really, it's a real privilege to get to know you and to be a colleague of yours. And can't believe you hit 50. Come on. Happy birthday. Although I heard Charlie Munger, who was Warren Buffett's protege, who just passed away last year, used to say, if I could only be 75 again. So if you were to wrap up and I'm not talking about resolutions more, I'm talking about directions. What does 2026 hold for you other than a very successful book launch and a massive impact out there in the community? What are you hoping for you? And say hi to that wonderful son of yours, by the way. I need to reconnect with him. But and I know you've got 3 kids, don't you? And
I do. Yeah. And Nicholas started another business, so he'll tell you about that. He's definitely a serial entrepreneur like I am.
Well, good. Tell him to reach out to me. I think we've been missing each other. But what's 2026 hold for you, and what's your wish to all of our audience out there?
Well, I want to have the freedom in terms of, so my book has a bird flying out, but for me, it's freedom to do more of the things that I really want to be doing, which is speaking on bigger stages. I love speaking, and I feel like I'm able to get across to audiences, especially leadership audiences, management audiences. I love that. And I also want to shine a light on how to create great cultures and how to eradicate toxicity from your culture. And I think the book will lead to more of this sort of speech and keynoting around the world. I want to go to different the world. That's freeing to me, is to be able to speak in different countries and meet different people along the way. So very excited, and excited to see this book become a bestseller. And the way that it does that is obviously through as many copies being bought as possible. And it's on Audible as well as all the audio platforms. And I narrate it. I narrate it with passion. And I have a 50-page workbook that goes along with it.
Wow.
So
excellent.
People can actually work through the exercises and activities. And it's like having a coach and going through this process. And then I love coaching people one-on-one. I just love getting to help people through when they feel trapped in the cage and getting back to the driver's seat of their career.
Did you have trouble picking the bird that was being released?
Yeah, my publisher, so they have a cover design team, and we went back and forth on the bird. It started out as a canary, and I didn't like the canary, and then I wanted it bigger, and there was the layout. But in the end, it's great, not perfect. You know what I mean? It was, we got it to a point where, this is great. The cage almost looks like it's papery because it's not really a cage you can't escape. It's a cage you can escape. And I love the bright vibrancy of the cover.
Yeah, I like it. The great design.
I think it's a compelling title, and I'll be launching it in Calgary January 13th with a huge event here. And then in Toronto, January 15th. And then I'll be on the social as well in Toronto. And a lot of news is picking it up, radio and news across North America.
Well, congratulations. So, I know you've really worked at it. And how great is that? And what a great way to kick off our podcast for the year, Laura. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to, I wish I could be in Calgary in the launch. It sounds like a great big deal. And I look forward to staying in touch through the year. And Happy New Year to you and your family, and all the best.
Thank you. And if people go to drlaura.live/books, that's where all the platforms that sell it are. And there's a pre-order giveaway as well there, a video series I did. So that's just drlaura.live/books.
I pre-ordered it yesterday, and it took me 2 seconds. So
nice.
Well done. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
See you, Laura.